Charlie was a young urbanite seeking something beyond the skyscrapers and constant noise of the big city. When he received an invitation to spend some time in the English countryside, he saw it as a chance to explore new horizons. Upon arriving in the quaint and welcoming village of Little Haven, Charlie was greeted by the fresh air and the peaceful atmosphere of the countryside. However, he soon realized that behind the apparent serenity, there were hidden mysteries that stirred the imaginations of the locals. Whispers in the narrow streets of the village hinted at the presence of a dark legend that haunted the region, the story of the Bride of the Graveyard. Tales of a bride abandoned at the altar and her tragic fate filled the conversations of the villagers, leaving Charlie curious and uneasy, eager to learn more about this intriguing local legend. The accounts were dark and fascinating, echoing through the narrow alleys of the village. It was said that many years ago, a beautiful blonde woman was about to marry in the local church. The preparations for the big day were complete, and the air was thick with expectation. However, joy and hope were cruelly shattered when the groom, overcome by sudden cowardice, abandoned her at the altar, leaving her alone before a sea of curious and sympathetic eyes. The young woman's heart was broken into 1,000 pieces that fateful morning, as tears of humiliation and pain stained the white fabric of her wedding dress. Desperate and ashamed, the young blonde saw her world crumble before her eyes. Consumed by anguish and betrayal, she decided she could not bear to live with the weight of dishonor and disillusionment. In the solitude of the night, she met her end, her soul forever lost to the abyss of death. Since then, her presence has haunted the silent corridors of the local graveyard. Whispers of her sad story echoed among the tombstones, while her pale, ethereal shadow roamed the muddy paths under the trembling moonlight. The Bride of the Graveyard, as she came to be known, became a symbol of sorrow and vengeance, luring and attacking men who dared cross her path with the same intensity with which her heart was broken that fateful morning. Charlie's curiosity was piqued by the macabre story that hung over the small village. Driven by a burning desire to uncover the mysteries surrounding the legend of the Bride of the Graveyard, he decided he wouldn't rest until he found the truth behind the shadows. Sitting in a local pub, the villagers' accounts echoed in his ears as he sipped a cold pint. Some seemed genuinely frightened, their eyes filled with fear at the memories of the legend, while others laughed off the superstition, claiming it was just a story to scare children. However, Charlie's determination did not waver. He waited patiently until the sun dipped below the horizon and darkness enveloped the village. Then, with a mix of nervousness and courage, he set off towards the graveyard, where shadows trembled among the old headstones like silent specters. Each step towards the unknown felt like a promise of imminent danger, but Charlie pressed on, fueled by the curiosity burning in his chest. The winds whispered ancient secrets, and the moon cast its pale light over the sacred ground, creating shadows that seemed to move and contort in a sinister dance. As he walked among the graves, the atmosphere of the place weighed on him like a dark shroud. Every noise seemed an echo of the dead sighs, and every shadow seemed to take on a life of its own under the night's cloak. But Charlie did not falter. His resolve was firm, and he was determined to uncover the secrets the graveyard held. It was then, in the graveyard's dim light, that Charlie glimpsed the supernatural figure that haunted the dreams of Little Haven's residents, the Bride of the Graveyard. Her golden hair shone like strands of gold in the moonlight, contrasting with the paleness of her skin and the surrounding darkness. A chill ran down Charlie's spine as he noticed the mysterious figure approaching. Her eyes, glowing with a supernatural intensity, locked onto his, holding him in a hypnotic gaze. A seductive smile curved the bride's lips, but there was something sinister behind that gesture, something that made Charlie's heart race with fear and fascination at the same time. Despite the instinct to flee screaming, Charlie found himself paralyzed, unable to look away or move a muscle. An invisible force seemed to hold him there, as if he were trapped in an invisible web woven by the night's very darkness. As the bride approached, each step echoed like the tolling of a bell, announcing a dark encounter between the world of the living and the dead. Charlie's heart pounded in his chest, a mix of fascination and terror overwhelming him completely. And then, in a moment that seemed to last an eternity, the bride stopped before him, her presence enveloping him like a cold, dense mist. It was as if time had frozen at that moment, and Charlie found himself at the mercy of forces he didn't understand but felt emanating from the very essence of the bride. Charlie was spellbound by the bride of the graveyard. With superhuman effort, Charlie finally managed to break the enchantment that held him, his muscles tense from the struggle against the unseen forces surrounding him. With his heart racing and his breath heavy, he turned his back on the graveyard and ran desperately back to the village. Each step echoed like thunder in his ears, fear driving him forward as he fled the darkness that hung over the sacred ground. The sensation that something sinister still followed him made him quicken his pace, his footsteps resounding in the deserted streets of the sleeping village. Even as the distance grew between him and the graveyard, Charlie couldn't shake the image of the bride from his mind, nor the sound of her chilling laughter that echoed like a dark echo in his ears. Knowing he had encountered something beyond human understanding, he decided it was time to leave Little Haven behind, carrying with him the terrifying memory of the bride of the graveyard, a memory that would haunt him for the rest of his days.